evening. I'm Dakota Makris. Thank you for joining us. A decision from the Supreme Court today that could affect the future of women's health for millions of Americans. The court sided with the state of Mississippi and moved to eliminate the constitutional right to abortion. Skylar Henry has more on the decision and reaction.
Protesters erupted outside the Supreme Court after the justices ruled to overturn Roe v. Wade.
I kept hoping for the best, but it's clear that these justices don't care about the majority of Americans and their voices.
This is going to be like history. This is just the beginning of, the pro-life generation, being there for women, for the unborn.
Writing for the majority, Justice Samuel Alito said the Constitution does not confer a right to abortion. Chief Justice John Roberts joined the other 5 conservatives in upholding Mississippi's abortion ban, but wrote he would have stopped short of overruling Roe outright.
It's a sad day for the court and for the country.
President Biden called the decision wrong and extreme.
Now, with Roe gone, let's be very clear. The health and life of women in this nation are now at risk.
The court's 3 liberals agreed, writing they dissented with sorrow for the many millions of American women who have today lost a fundamental constitutional protection. The court's ruling wasn't a surprise. It'd been forecast several weeks ago following a leaked draft indicating which way the justices were leaning. The decision is expected to lead to abortion bans in roughly half the states.
This decision is a victory for the pro-life movement and for the generations of Americans who never gave up hope.
The ruling puts the court at odds with a majority of Americans. CBS News polling found 2/3 wanted the court to leave Roe v. Wade in place, as it has been for nearly half a century. Skylar Henry, CBS News, at the Supreme Court.
In addition to overturning Roe, Justice Clarence Thomas also called on the court to overturn other rulings, including protections for same-sex marriage and the use of contraceptives. Well, the Supreme Court decision made abortions illegal immediately here in Kentucky. That's because Kentucky was a trigger law state. Kentucky Republicans called this landmark ruling a win, while Democrats, including Governor Andy Beshear, say this trigger law now in effect in Kentucky is extremist and wrong. The ACLU of Kentucky has already said it is looking at challenging the trigger law, saying the Kentucky Constitution allows for the legal right to an abortion. The constitutionality is actually up for a vote on November's ballot.
I think today's decision will effectively eliminate any options for individuals in the Commonwealth of Kentucky.
What I would say is that our law makes an exception for the health of the mother, and I'll leave it to others to make the determination about what that means as it relates to the ACLU.
Well, all day, Kentucky leaders from both sides have been weighing in on the Supreme Court's ruling. Well, did you know more women in the U.S. die during pregnancy and childbirth than any other wealthy country in the world? Well, the Biden administration wants to change that. The plan is called the White House Blueprint for Addressing the Maternal Health Crisis. It includes a number of coordinated actions that are focused on getting to the root cause of poor birth outcomes. Some of the ideas: extending Medicaid coverage for postpartum care to a year after giving birth, giving hospitals and birthing providers more training and resources, and offering pregnant and new moms more mental health support. Well, some breaking news right now. Public health officials announced today that the first probable case of monkeypox has been identified here in Kentucky. The positive patient is a Jefferson County resident. Due to privacy concerns, no further information will be released about the patient. The patient remains isolated, and health officials are working to identify anyone the patient may have been in close contact with while infectious. Initial testing was completed at Kentucky's Department for Public Health. Pro-choice and pro-life groups are reacting to the decision. In less than an hour, pro-choice advocates will rally in downtown Lexington outside the courthouses. Carol Savovic with the Kentucky Religious Coalition for Reproductive Choice says the decision is devastating and has allowed state legislators to impose their own beliefs on people. She says going forward in the fight for women's rights is going to be very tough. Now, their main goal will be to educate women on how and where they can get abortions, which she says just became so much more costly and more difficult to do.
Looking at women who already were facing hurdles in state for abortion, now looking to need to travel to another state, deal with the extra costs of that, not just the abortion costs, which are already significant for many women of limited means, but the transportation costs, the accommodation costs, the childcare, the loss of work time.
David Waz with the Family Foundation, a pro-life group that has been advocating for Roe versus Wade to be overturned for years, says this is a win for Kentuckians, calling it a great day. He says the foundation believes it should have always been left up to state legislators to rule on, calling the Supreme Court's decision today righteous and just for, he says, unborn babies and democracy.
But it's important to remind folks that ultimately this was a legal decision. This was the right thing to do in terms of the Constitution. The Constitution does not provide a so-called right to an abortion. It was invented by the court back in 1973. So this was a just decision and the right decision legally.
The rally in Lexington starts at 6 o'clock and will go until 8 o'clock tonight. A possible future project is coming to Somerset after council members asked to authorize officials to seek state funding for a sports tourism. Our Jade Saylor talked to Somerset Mayor Alan Keck about future plans.
Somerset is applying for $1 million in sports tourism funds.
We were trying to look for opportunities that would be a blessing for our locals, but also that maybe we could capture extra tourism dollars.
Looking to upgrade youth sports facilities in the community.
Right now I'm picturing, this blend of soccer and football, maybe even lacrosse, baseball potential on outdoor turf. And then indoors, we're really going to focus on tennis, pickleball, archery, and then if the money comes together, maybe basketball and volleyball as well.
A bill passed in a recent legislative session includes $1 million for Somerset's Parks and Recreation development.
Senator Girdler, I'm really thankful. He believed in this vision in the last budget. He put that $1 million in there, sort of as the seed, and that's really going to be a catalyst for us to get this going.
Somerset Mayor Alan Keck says that this will be great for those having to travel out of town for sports facilities right now.
We're paying $5 for gasoline right now, and we need more things in each community for our locals, and so this is a quality of life, quality of place initiative.
The plan is to get to work as soon as possible with hopes of having it ready by early 2024.
We're working with a group right now. Again, we want to make sure that it's feasible and sustainable. So they're going to kind of give us some guardrails of what's actually possible. And then once we get that, we're going to hit the ground running.
Once approved, the work can begin. In Somerset, Jade Saylor, WYMT Mountain News.
Well, the mayor says he believes this will be a great attraction that will allow Somerset to grow faster. A memorial service for the victims of the Surfside condo collapse was held today in Florida to mark 1 year since the tragedy. A private family vigil to mark the time of the collapse happened overnight. 98 people died when the oceanfront building suddenly came down in the middle of the night. Well, a 92-year-old was one of the victims who died when the tower's south collapsed in the middle of the night.
There's just this big void of love that was just constantly poured into my heart, into my family's heart.
A judge also approved a $1 billion settlement. It will come from several sources, including insurance companies, engineering companies, and a luxury condo recently built next door. But none of the parties are admitting wrongdoing. Democrats banded together with 14 Republicans in the House and 15 in the Senate to pass new gun control legislation in the wake of the recent mass shootings in Buffalo, New York, and Uvalde, Texas. Deborah Alfarone is on Capitol Hill with more on this historic bill.
Is laid upon the table. The motion is adopted.
The House has passed a Senate bill sending the first major new gun control legislation in nearly 30 years to the White House to be signed into law.
Let us not judge this legislation for what is not in it, but respect it for what it does. And what it does is save lives.
The bipartisan legislation will enhance gun background checks for people under 21. It sets aside $750 million to give to states that implement red flag laws designed to temporarily seize guns from people deemed dangerous. And it closes the so-called boyfriend loophole, preventing someone who's been convicted of domestic abuse but lives outside a victim's home from buying a gun. Nearly every Republican in the House opposed the bill, saying it tramples on Americans' rights.
They are coming after Americans, law-abiding American citizens' Second Amendment liberties.
The Senate passed this bill Thursday night after weeks of bipartisan negotiations led by Democrat Chris Murphy and Republican John Cornyn.
I don't believe in doing nothing in the face of what we saw in Uvalde and we've seen in far too many communities.
This bill is a compromise. It doesn't do everything I want, but what we are doing will save thousands of lives.
15 Republicans joined Democrats in passing the bill in the Senate. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says he is not concerned about pressure from the NRA.
What I'm mainly concerned about is dealing with the issues that have been brought to the fore by these mass shootings.
Many Republicans who voted in favor will not be facing voters in 2024. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
The Senate breakthrough Thursday came on the same day the Supreme Court struck down a New York law that limited carrying guns outside the home, reflecting the divergence between the nation's highest court and Congress's latest move toward gun control. New research estimates how many lives have been saved worldwide because of COVID-19 vaccines. Previous studies show COVID-19 vaccines can protect against severe illness, hospitalization, and death. Now research reveals nearly 20 million lives were saved in the year following the vaccination rollout.
That is just a remarkable number, and it's the core reason why many higher income countries have been able to relax many of the interventions that they've had in place for the past 2 years and return to a sort of new state of normal in this pandemic.
Researchers also stress that getting shots into as many arms as possible worldwide could have limited the outbreak of new variants. A New York Racing Association has suspended Hall of Fame horse trainer Bob Baffert for 1 year. He is already banned from competing in Kentucky for 2 years. The suspensions come in the wake of Baffert's horse, Medina Spirit's 2021 Kentucky Derby win and then disqualification after the horse tested positive for a drug not allowed on race day. With credit for time served, Baffert will be eligible to compete in New York in late January, meaning he will be eligible to take part in next year's Belmont and Preakness Stakes. Baffert has won the Kentucky Derby 6 times, not counting the disqualified one in 2021, but the Kentucky suspension kept him out of the race this year, and he won't be able to compete next year either. Well, coming up here on Mountain News at 5:30, if you search your name online, there's a chance critical personal information could pop up. The steps you can take to protect yourself.
Plus, in your mountain forecast, hot air continues in the region this weekend before some cooling storms move in. The full breakdown is coming up next.